Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Active NP Medicava present Marketing versus Sales. What's the difference and why you need both to thrive? We have Christopher Clark here with Active NP, who's going to give you some free tips and tricks on really helping your practice excel in the marketing world. And then also myself, Claire Bodke with Medicava, going to help you all learn how sales is an integral piece of your practice and if there's some available resources to help you outside of your practice. So without further ado, let's get started.
Now, the difference between sales and marketing is that marketing owns the message and sales owns the relationship. Both are important and both are necessary. I don't want you to feel like you have one without the other. You will, in this new business model and advice from other people, constantly be reminded about why both are important. In addition, you may find yourself creating a budget. And I want you to, in creating this budget and this business plan, identify that there is a need for both creating that wide net and also reeling the fish in, right? The other part about sales is that there's a long tooth to the relationship. It's not just about the one-time event of the sale. It's about lengthening and also retaining that client over time. That flows very well into the long-term marketing side of things. So remember, marketing owns the messaging and sale owns the relationship. So if we're going to talk a little bit about the funnel, and many of you who have probably been through any marketing course or any sat down and talked to a lot of people, this is one of the widely known images when it comes to letting you see into the life cycle of your prospective client. And so in the beginning, like we said, that wide net or the top of that funnel, it's important to talk about awareness and interest. And Chris is going to really dive into those two pieces for you in his discussion. And then for sales, we have to think about the consideration of the client, why they're going to be using you, and then that purchasing experience. So I'll dive into those a little bit later. But I would love to let Chris take the mic here. And he, like I said, he is with Active NP, and he is going to talk to you all about marketing.
Thank you, Claire. So to get into it, as you saw in the funnel, every good marketing and sales strategy starts with awareness, followed by interest, consideration, and then lastly, purchase. In order to make sure that your initiatives to acquire patients are successful, it's crucial to make sure your potential consumers hit every step of this process. Now, I know it's easier said than done, but first, let's break down the first two steps. That way you can better assess your own practice's marketing needs. Let's talk about awareness. First things first, you need to let your community know you exist. Luckily, nowadays, it's easier than ever to make you and your practice known. By utilizing the power of the internet and social media, you can inform your surrounding area of the services you provide. But simply having an online presence isn't enough. These are the following questions you should be asking yourself in reference to your practice. Do I have a website? This is the first question you should be asking yourself. A website is an online representation of your practice, and just like any first impression, this is a crucial step in building your patient base. If your website isn't aesthetically beautiful and user-friendly, it could be bad for business. A study found that 94% of negative website feedback was design-related. Next, is my website mobile-friendly? Now this is an easy question to answer. Simply go on your smartphone or tablet and look up your website. If your website is conforming properly to the screen, then you know your website is mobile friendly, or in industry terms, responsive. 57% of internet users say that they won't recommend a business with a poorly designed website on mobile. Now that's pretty poor because nowadays everybody's looking on their phone. So, next, does my website show up on the first page of Google? Being on Google now is more important than ever. Ask yourself, when you want to learn about a product, service, or subject, where do you go? Exactly. I'm sure the first thing you thought of was Google. It isn't easy it isn't an easy task to show up on the first page of Google, especially in terms of searching for commonly used terms. In order to fix this, you will have to implement SEO or search engine optimization strategy. There are plenty of ways you can do this yourself, but if you don't think you can manage this, definitely contact a professional. 97% of people learn about local companies online more than anywhere else. Next, does my website clearly explain the services I provide? There is a little trick to this. What I want you to do is go on your website and review your services. If you feel like you have a hard time understanding or it's not very clear, then it's time to update your content. 38% of people will stop engaging with a website if the content or layout is unattractive. Next, the NAP. And now I'm sure you're wondering, what's NAP? Well, NAP is name, address, and phone number. This is a crucial thing to have on your website on every single page, and you can usually post that right on the bottom. Not only is it crucial for your customers to know that they can reach out to you whenever and they can find that information easily, but it's very important for Google as well, because Google wants to provide the most accurate information around. So they're constantly crawling the internet, making sure that this is exactly what people want to find. So you want to make sure everything is consistent across the web. Next, have I performed keyword research for the content on my website? Performing keyword research is a very important step in SEO. When you do SEO research, you are looking to see what are the most popular terms that people are searching for. For example, primary clinic in Austin, Texas. If you're providing primary care clinic in Austin, then you want to rank for this phrase. Now, in a city like Austin, there's a lot of competition, so it's going to be difficult to rank on the first page for this, but it's not impossible. If you don't have the time to consistently be updating your SEO strategy, I would recommend seeking professional help. Can my patients find me on social media? Having a consistent online presence on every platform is a good idea. The great thing about social is that your patients can see how your practice interacts with patients online. It helps them to see what vibe your practice is giving off by the content they post and the message they portray. Lastly, are my competitors running Google/Facebook ads and grabbing my potential patients? In order to be successful, it's crucial to understand and know what your competitors are doing. This gives you some good insight into what you should be doing. If you type in a certain key phrase into Google and your competitor has an ad running there, most likely you should consider running an ad there too, or optimizing your page for that key phrase. Now, these questions will help you understand your practice's needs and help you better assess ways to gain more patients. Once you have figured out how you're doing in the awareness section of the funnel, you can move on to the interest. Now let's talk about interest. There are many ways to get potential patients interested in the services, and a lot of which we went over in awareness. Now, like we said before, an attractive, modern, and mobile-friendly website is crucial. As mentioned above, having an attractive website that looks good and on every device is crucial. You want to pique your patients' interest when they are learning about your practice. One of our clients is always getting complimented by his website, and his patients couldn't be happier. A great user experience. One way to make sure you are creating interest in your practice is making sure potential patients have a great experience on your website. For example, using a chatbot or having a health assessment that they can do on your website is great for improving the experience, and it will compel visitors to interact with your practice. Now, a proper use of CTA, and this is call to action. I cannot emphasize this enough. Every website, no matter what industry you are in, needs to have a call to action. Now, you're probably curious to what a call to action is. Well, in marketing terms, a call to action is a piece of content intended to induce a viewer, reader, or listener to perform a specific act. For example, having a button on your homepage saying, schedule your free consultation. This will push your users to set up appointments. Next, relevant content. If you don't have content on your website that's relevant to your audience, then you need to reevaluate your online strategy. It's always a good idea to ask yourself, why would I be going to my website and what problem would I be trying to solve? By having good relevant content, you are sharing with your visitors that you are a subject matter expert. Map and location. Be sure to have a Google Maps snippet on your website. There's no point in promoting your patients that can't find you. It also helps to have a Google My Business page so that you can definitely direct patients to your location. Contact info and forms. Contact info and forms need to be present to spark interest. Having this allows you and your staff to answer questions about procedures, insurance, and other matters so that patients know they are eligible to come in and seek your care. Now this one's fun, blog. This is where it gets a little bit fun because now you get to express yourself in a different kind of way. Posting in your blog allows you to express yourself on matters that relate to the problems you're addressing in your practice. This lets your visitors learn a little bit more about you and helps them to acknowledge you as the expert that you are. This is also great for SEO because in each blog post, you can optimize that post for a specific keyword, which then will allow you to rank on Google. Now, lastly, social accounts with engaging posts. Social media is a great place to interact with your audience. It's a great place to promote special giveaways and discounts that really help to interest potential patients. Now, before we move on down the funnel, here are a couple more important facts you need to know about how having a great online presence can help your practice. First, 75% of patients admit to making judgments on practices' credibility based on their website design. That's a huge percentage, and think about all the business you could be losing just because of a poorly designed website. Next, it takes about 50 milliseconds for users to form an opinion about your website that determines whether they like your site or not and whether they'll stay or leave. This is important. The more time these users stay on your website, the more likely they are to convert into patients. That's why it needs to be user-friendly, it needs to be beautiful, and it needs to be interactive. And lastly, mobile devices are projected to compromise 63% of global internet use by the end of 2019. Well, let me tell you folks, it's 2020 now, so this is huge. These are huge stats, and you need to capitalize on this now, and that way you can stay competitive in your local markets. Now, as you can see, marketing is only the beginning part of the process when you're trying to acquire new patients. It's marketing's job to create awareness and interest, but it's sales to make sure those individuals become patients. All right, Claire, well, back to you.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Chris. That was a plethora of information, and I hope you all really took some time to look at those stats, and there's more coming. So I want you to take some time, pause the recording if you're watching this again, and go back and really read those because they're important to understand why we put them in presentations like this. They're impactful for a reason, yet they're informative. And when we're talking about percentages, if we're here in 2020 and there is a percentage that 63% of people are going to be mobile by last year, you can only imagine where that is now. And think about where we've come even in the past 2 to 3 years. So let's really look at those statistics. Like I said, there's more to come now. So if we're talking about the other side of the coin, right? If the front side is going to be the marketing side and then the other side is sales, we now have to talk about, do you want to be a salesperson? I think this is an important slide for so many people because in our day-to-day life, not only do we get asked the question, how do I do something? But I put the question back onto my practitioners and ask them, well, do you really even want to be doing it? Your natural ability to heal is why you got into this business. You want to talk to patients. You want to provide positive health outcomes. And the other side of what you're doing is the business side. And it tends to pull away from the clinician piece of you and put you into places that maybe aren't necessarily your comfort zone. And there's a lot to be said for what people say of getting out of your comfort zone. But in functional and integrative medicine, the care that you have to put in and the time that is needed to dedicate to each patient, it's sometimes difficult to create a sales follow-up model because you're spending so much time on the clinical follow-up that you don't really have enough time to spend on the sales follow-up. In addition to that, do you really even know how to sell? Selling is a skill. It is something that comes either naturally to people or they have been to school for years to learn. They've read books on it. They've been to live mastermind classes, and they know how to navigate a conversation well. If you are somebody who truly enjoys that, and that is part of your day-to-day natural conversation, I encourage you to keep doing it. If it's not something that feels good to you, I encourage you to look at outsourcing. There is nothing wrong with that. We outsource our legal and our bookkeeper and our web designers, right? So why do we feel like we need to be in-house salespeople when we should just really be focusing on the clinician side? The number one question that I get asked all the time is, or it's not even really a question, really. It's a statement, and it's the practitioners who say, "Claire, I hate asking for money. I hate talking about money. I don't like talking about the contract." They undervalue themselves, and sometimes they'll even find themselves giving away free, or what I like to call drive-by medicine, because the patient is asking a question. And if they haven't engaged in that doctor-patient relationship yet or paid any monetary value for services, sometimes the clinician just gives away advice. And that can be detrimental in some cases because you haven't established that relationship, but also it devalues what you offer for money, right? So I invite you to really think about, if you're not comfortable having the money conversation, who is? And likewise, if you are comfortable having the money conversation, make sure you have priced your services accordingly. You are worth more money than you think. And that's what brings me to my next question is, do you know the value of your services? If you have not already, I highly encourage you to sit down and write this out. If it takes you 1 hour face-to-face to meet with a patient, how much time of your clinician time did you spend preparing for that visit? How much time are you going to spend post-visit making your note? In addition, if we have a follow-up visit that is 45 minutes or 60 minutes, how much time are you spending preparing for that visit? How much time are you spending interpreting labs, creating supplement protocols, identifying treatment plans, researching, going to continuing education? These are all things that should be calculated into the value of your services. And if you're not doing that, you should be. And I want you to get off of this call and sit down and really look at how much your time is worth per patient, either per month or per year. It's important, and it helps you make sure that you are not undervaluing your services. So picture yourself in a daily practice, and the phone is ringing, and you also have a patient in front of you. Well, if the patient in front of you has paid an amount of money, or, a transaction has occurred for them to meet with you, you want to give them your undivided attention. But you look down in the corner of your eye, your cell phone is ringing, or you can hear the office phone ringing up front. Who's answering those calls? In some cases, we have virtual assistants or even front desk receptionists who can answer the call. But what if the person calling has questions about your practice or your membership or your programs? Is the person answering the call skilled enough to take that information and turn that person into a paying customer? If the answer to that is no, then you do not have the right person answering your phone. I highly encourage you to sit down and look at and think through, if I don't have the person answering the phone that I need, who can I hire? And in many cases, you'll find that a skilled salesperson can also do the job of an administrative assistant better than an administrative assistant can learn how to sell. So think about the sale first and that skill set before just thinking about the administrative side. And then I want you to think about, if you have time to follow up with those people, return voicemails, return emails, and all of the things that are required to follow up with the patient. The next thing I want to talk about is consideration. If we're thinking about that funnel from what Chris had talked about, consideration is the part of the sales process. But only 2% of sales are made on the first contact. So if someone is considering using your practice and you didn't answer the phone, well, that's 0% right there anyway, right? And even if you called them back the first time, then you're only going to get 2% of those sales. So think of how many people you need to have calling your practice if you can only call somebody back one time. Now look at this statistic. 80% of the sales are made between the 5th to the 12th contact. So are you going to follow up with somebody 12 times? I guarantee you the answer is no, because you already have to follow up with them a lot of times for their treatment program. If you don't have somebody like a health coach or another wellness director in your office following up with people regarding their labs, their supplement protocols, their treatment plans, just really in general checking in on them. If you don't already have somebody doing that, and then you layer in the fact that you need to call somebody or email them 12 more times to close on your program, it's a big commitment, and it's not going to end, right? It doesn't just end with one person. If you think you need 50 people to fill your practice by the end of the year, 50 times 12 times however many prospects, right? It adds up very quickly, and you'll find yourself spending a full-time job in just the sales cycle. So this is a huge piece of consideration. And Chris touched on it a little bit earlier, like I mentioned, but it's around that health assessment. So one of the greatest call to actions on your website is inviting your prospective patient or client to complete a readiness or health assessment. It is wonderful when it comes to creating the purchase conversation. It allows you as the clinician to really have that time to breathe on the phone. It takes the conversation and puts it more in the clinical aspect versus the product, bullet point, menu of services conversation. And it allows the patient to explain where they are in their current health status. So you can use different things for this. Sometimes people will use either the MySQ from Practice Better, they'll use the MSQ from Living Matrix, or they'll use their own combination of readiness assessment questions to create an online form. The idea here being that obviously when the patient creates that account or fills in the form, that it goes into a HIPAA secure environment, and that information is then passed along to either your salesperson or you yourself as the practitioner. You pick up the phone and you call that prospect. You talk to them about their answers and help identify why your program is a good fit. And that brings us right into the purchase piece, which is you are now in a consultative relationship with this patient. You are not in a product selling. Yes, you may have products like supplements, or you may have products like, biofeedback or in-body or infrared sauna or things like that. But in reality, you are selling health. You're selling an intangible object. So when we get into that purchase process, we're talking now about your value proposition. Are you membership based? Are you fee for service? Are you package model? And how that relates back to your client is all comes back into them as your onboarding process, meaning that when they pay you for a service or they pay you for a package, the value of that is in the patient experience from beginning to end, right? So how are you onboarding them? What does your contract look like? How are you getting paid? All of those things then tie them into that experience and are part of the purchase process. So if you're somebody who is sitting there thinking, I don't have time to call people back 8 to 12 times, I don't think that I have the conversational skills needed to take somebody from, patient 1.0 to 2.0. And I truly don't even know if there's anybody in my office that's skilled enough to do this. Then note that there are people that are out there who do this for you. You need someone who has the skill set already. They have the time that's dedicated and the passion to really help your patients navigate this new model. And so if you were to go with something like an outsourcing or a Medicava type of a situation, you're going to get all of these benefits from it. And I don't want to spend too much time really going into what they can do, because I invite you to really speak to their team about it. But there's a lot of benefits into outsourcing to someone like Active NP for your marketing, who knows what they're doing, who knows what this takes to really execute, and someone like Medicava who can really take the time needed to take those relationships to the next level with your patients. All right. So what's the next step, Chris?
So if you want to consult with ActiveMP about how we can help create awareness and interest, just go to activemp.com, get your free website consultation or SEO assessment. You know, we're a full agency, a digital agency, and we're here to help. You know, I think this whole presentation really goes back to the fact that you're in this because you want to care for your patients, and it's our job to bring the patients to you, right? And then so on. So yeah, for your free consultation, contact Dr. VP. And thank you so much, Claire.
You're welcome. And same with us. If you all really want to take all of the marketing that Active NP does for you and make sure that you're closing the loop, that's the biggest part of this. That's what we want you to see and get from this, is that you have to generate the interest, right? And with all of that, and you're putting everybody into this big bucket, we want to make sure there's no holes at the bottom, right? So what can sometimes happen is practitioners spend a ton of money on marketing and getting their name out there, and then having the phone ring or the emails come in, but no one's catching it at the bottom, and everyone's falling out the bottom. And so we encourage you to think through the entire relationship and all the collaborative pieces, and make sure that you are setting yourself up for success in the long term. So thank you all so much, and we look forward to speaking with each one of you in the future.